way, group 3 is going to present our topic GST returns.
Okay.
The flow of presentation will be, so next slide. The flow of the presentation will be overview of GST, GST registration, GST return, followed by filling of website of return, types of return, and summary. So basically, what is GST? GST is Good and Service Act, which was introduced in India in 2017. It is an indirect tax system that has replaced the range of taxes and levies that were previously imposed by the central and state government. Basically, it was the step to, there were so many taxes earlier, so they have brought all the taxes under one umbrella under the name of the GST. So next slide. So GST registration. Here we will talk about the people who need to register for the GST. So all the companies or person who have aggregate turnover exceed 20 lakh, so they have to need to register for the goods and services both. And for the some special category states, the people whose sales exceeds 10 lakh, they need to register. But after the 2019 rule have changed, now the for the sales of good the limit have exceeded, they have gone up to the 40 lakh. But for the services, it have remained the same of 20 lakh. And
Okay.
for the special category state, for goods, it is exceed, if it exceed 20 lakh, then you need to register for the GST. Okay, so next slide. So what is GST return? A return is a document containing details of income which a taxpayer is required to file with the GST administrative authorities. Under GST, a dealer must file GST return that include purchases, sales, output GST, or input tax credit. So there are the various ways by which we can return our GST. First is the offline utilities provided by the GST. Second is the online portal, which is www.gst.gov.in. There is GST Suvidha providers which are also there. And if a taxpayer is using the some ERP such as SAP, Oracle, then there are the ERPs providing themselves the inbuilt solution for the existing ERP systems.
Okay.
So talking about the types of GST returns. The first is the GSTR 1. If our aggregate turnover is more than 5 crore, then we need to pay by the 11th monthly. And second is GSTR 2A, it is the view only. And GSTR 2B, they both get the auto populated and they are the view only. And GSTR 3B, we need to fill that monthly. And GSTR 4 is a composite dealer. Now Kishore will follow.
Yeah, Kishore.
So sir, now we'll talk about GSTR1. So the GSTR1 basically is a sales register of goods and services. Here we can enter the details, data of the sales, like basically any outward supplies that a supplier is doing. He or she needs to register that transaction and register it under GSTR1. At the same point of time, if the person sells his good and services to other state, he is liable for IGST charge on him. So intra-state or within state, we file CGST and SGST are applicable, but for interstate or outside the state, IGST is also applicable. GSTR1 return will include details of the outward supplies or sales by the taxpayers. The GSTR1 contains the following information. So these are the following information that GSTR1 contains. Taxable outward supply to a registered person. Secondly, taxable outward interstate supplies to a consumer and invoice value if the invoice value is more than rupees 2.5 lakhs. Taxable outward supplies to consumer other than above. Details of credit or debit notes, if any. Amendments to details of outward supplies of earlier tax periods. Then supplies exported, tax liability of amount received in advance against a supply to be made in future. Then GSTR is a monthly or quarterly return that summarizes all sales, basically the outward supplies of a taxpayer. Every person who has done their GST registration should file this return, except a person registered under composition scheme, and we have already discussed about the composition scheme. Non-resident taxpayers, e-commerce aggregator or marketplace, and foreign diplomats. The due date for GSTR 1 are based on your aggregate turnover. Businesses with sales of up to rupees 5 crores have an option to file quarterly returns under the QRMP scheme, which is basically the quarterly return but monthly paid scheme, and are due by 13th of the month following the relevant quarter. And if they do not opt this scheme, then they must file it on or before 11th of the next month.
Acha, Kishore, what is QRMP means?
Sir, QRMP basically is a quarterly return and monthly paid scheme. In this scheme, what happens is we are filing the return quarterly but paying our dues on a monthly basis.
Okay, fine. ठीक है. Go ahead, please.
Then comes GSTR 2A. So form GSTR 2A is a purchase related dynamic tax return that is auto generated for each business by GST portal. So GSTR 2A is a view only dynamic GST return, dynamic GST return. So all the outward supplies that are being entered by all of the sellers, all of the suppliers. So at the time of ITC, which is input tax credit, it is very important that every supplier should fill the GSTR 1A so that it could be auto-populated to the GSTR 2A and we get the benefit of ITC. So if there is a mismatch in if there is a if some supplier has not entered the outward supply in GSTR 1A, then it would be difficult for the other party to claim it as it in ITC because it won't be auto populated in the GSTR 2A. Then GSTR 2B, form GSTR 2B is a new static month-wise auto-drafted statement for regular taxpayers introduced on GST portal. The GSTR 2B is a GST return important for the recipient or buyer of the goods and services because the recipient or the buyer of the goods needs to claim the ITC further, and that is why it is very important so that it gets auto-populated to GSTR 2B. It is available every month starting in August 2020 and contains constant ITC data for a period whenever checked back. Now Dia will take over.
Okay, dear.
So GSTR 3, outward and inward supplies return. So, GSTR 3 is a consolidated return of inward and outward supplies. So outward supplies includes goods and services of inter and intrastate supplies and goods return exports. Inward supplies includes goods and services of IGST. So to file GSTR 3, only registered person is required to file the return on the 20th of the following month with the details required such as inward and outward supplies, requiring the details of TDS and TDS, tax deducted at source, tax collected by source, tax payable and tax paid. So GSTR 3B includes details regarding liability towards tax, interest, penalty fees, or any refund, other amount payable. GSTR 3B is a simple return containing a summary of outward supplies, inward supplies liable to reverse charge, eligible ITC, payment of tax, etc. Next question. GSTR 4 under composition scheme. So GSTR 4 is an annual return that was to be filed by composition taxable person under GST by 30th of April of the year following the relevant financial year. So earlier it used to be a GSTR 9A annual return, but now it has changed to GSTR 4. Prior to financial year 2019 to 20, this return had to be filed on a quarterly basis, but it is a simple challan in form of CMP 8 filed, filed by 18th of the month succeeding every quarter replaced it. So the Kishore has already explained the composition scheme. So we're moving forward to GST return forward. GST return process. Kishore, next slide. So this diagram will be explained. So you file the basically all summary of the diagram. So you file GSTR 1 for sales made, due date of 10th of next month. Then your buyer views sales made by you in GSTR 2A, and its due date is 11th of next month. Then the buyer approves the sale made by you and files GSTR 2, which is auto populated, and due date is 15th of next month. And if buyer modifies the sales marked by the person, then you can see that in GSTR 1A. And if you can approve or disapprove the changes. And lastly, when the buyer approves, GSTR 3 is generated with the payment of the tax, which is due on 20th of the following month.
Okay, fine.
Thank you, sir.
ठीक है चलो I think now we can go it with the last presentation. आपका हो गया किशोर?
Sir, we